Thanks, Michelle, for taking the time today. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Anya. So I'm a born and raised Berliner, and I started out in Japanese studies, which might come off as weird, but now I'm a front-end developer. So I hope that will make some interesting topic to talk about. And yeah, after my master's degree, I moved to Japan for 3 years, where I also worked and ventured into tech, and moved back to Berlin 1.5 years ago, I think, where I did a bootcamp at Ironhack to study full stack web development. And after that, I found my internship that I'm at right now, which is at Checkly.
Great, very interesting. How long have you been in the front-end intern role? Like, it has been more than a year, or it's like 6 months?
It's been nearly 5 months now. So I graduated from the bootcamp at the beginning of June, and then I was job hunting for about maybe 2 or 3 months. And I started my internship at the middle of September. Yeah. And it is due to end middle of March. So it's a period of 6 months. And yeah, hopefully I will be taking on afterwards, which is the goal. But this topic hasn't come up yet. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's great. Can you tell us a little bit, like, so far, what are your key learnings from this internship role? Can you maybe tell us a little bit, like, day-to-day activities there, and what are your key takeaways?
Yeah. So for now, it's mostly getting accustomed to a development environment, because I was really lacking the experience of working in a tech company, actually. So it's also about just taking part in meetings, following a product development process and life cycle. So just getting accustomed to like the day-to-day life in a tech company has been one of my best experiences, I would say, so far. And then personally, of course, like taking ownership of my tasks and getting feedback from my team to advance my skills. And yeah, just a lot of tools and technologies that you tackle every day.
Interesting. Do you see some difference, like, hey, what is the difference you notice, like somebody who's done a bootcamp projects, like maybe a couple of projects in the bootcamp, and when they work with a real project and an internship, do you see any difference, like, hey, this is something which is missing, like this is what I learned from these internship, this is like something I didn't get it from my bootcamp projects?
Well, one thing that was often missing, I would say, at the bootcamp projects is feedback, because bootcamps are very condensed in time. So Ironhack was, I believe, 9 weeks. And we had 1 week for our projects, and then it was on to the next thing. You rarely had time to actually look back at what you did and also get feedback on your code. Whereas now, of course, I have to do like a PR, open a PR for my tickets, and then somebody will actually look at my code and give me feedback, which has been the best learning opportunity, I would say. Yeah.
That's a really important point. So it's about learning, like, hey, how can I make things better? It's my perspective. Like, I write a code, it's my perspective. Let's get maybe a senior or maybe a colleague, take a look, like, hey, there could be a better way, or like, hey, your approach is good, please go ahead. That's the best way. So it's more, you say it's more collaborative, like you learn every day, and also like a positive feedback, a constructive feedback you get, and you learn the technology, the process in a better way. It's much more powerful in the real internship.
Definitely. I mean, a bootcamp is not a real life experience in the industry. It's a very it's a quick way to learn a lot, but it's not a working experience, I would say, because you're in a kind of a bubble, and you're also pushed to learn and work very fast. And I think actually the speed is not maintainable like in a real life setting, because it would probably burn out otherwise. But yeah, you have I think more time to actually like reflect on your code in a work environment, and yeah, definitely get feedback.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think that's what most of the bootcamp students who are planning to, or looking for to get an experience. I hear again and again, like, hey, yes, I'm done with the bootcamp now. What should I do now? Like, I don't have an experience. I kind of made a career switch, or I'm just starting, I guess, a graduate. What would you suggest, like somebody who's struggling, like, hey, I don't know, like I don't have an experience. I just got a bootcamp experience. How someone should aim for to get an internship? Let's take in your case, like front-end internship. How would you approach? What would you advise?
First of all, I would say when you graduate your bootcamp, keep coding, because some people will just stop doing things, and especially in the beginning when your knowledge is still very fragile, you just need to repeat, need to practice, build things, and also polish your projects that you can show for interviews. And yeah, do like mock interviews with friends or peers that are in your cohort, or find similar people online, because I think, like for me, one of the most helpful things was that I had like an accountability group with two of my peers from the bootcamp, where we met up every morning for kind of like a little stand-up, and we would report on like how our interviews went, what we will do today, and yeah, just kind of like give some structure to the post bootcamp process. Of course, we had the like the benefit of being unemployed, so job hunting was our full-time job at that point. But even if you have other responsibilities, I think it's good to have like somebody else in a similar situation and motivate each other.
That's a really great point. So it's more like a stand-up, like you are, hey, this is what I'm going to do today, and this is what my plan for this week. So I have so many interviews, and I'm applying for 2 companies, which looks really promising. So this is what I'm committing to do that, and this is what my success looks like. So it's like, okay, so openly, like you share with your peer, come more like your team. So yeah, that's a great idea. And can you tell me like about the first tip you share, like keep coding? What are the things people can do to keep coding so that they don't get bored, so they keep motivated, apart from having kind of fine-tuning your bootcamp projects? Did you try anything on online, like contributing to open source or participating like 100 days of code? What are some other things like which students can try so that they keep motivated and like they keep learning, so that it's in fresh, the knowledge is fresh and they're keep learning?
I think you have like a variety of opportunities there. There are some websites where you can volunteer your time, for example, and build or help out at existing projects. If you're up for the challenge, you might do some freelancing already. Maybe you have like a friend who wants a small website, and you can chip in there. Or what I personally did was building websites from kind of like design templates. So we found this website called Frontend Mentor and Frontend Practice, where you have like Figma prototypes, and you can use those to build a real website. So for me, that took a bit away the pain of designing something, because there can be kind of a hurdle when you want to start coding, especially in front end. So starting off with an already existing design and yeah, putting that into real life has been like one of my practices, definitely.
From an interview or from a hiring team perspective, what do you think is most important for students who are coming, like, hey, is they should focus on resume, or they should focus on a portfolio with some of their bootcamp projects, or like, let me build my strong GitHub profile with a lot of front-end projects, so that it feels like I'm coding and I'm like really showing that I'm actively contributing and I'm actually coding it. So what would you suggest for somebody who's preparing for the interview?
Like coming from a front-end developer perspective or generally web dev, I would say keeping up your GitHub is a good way to start, because recruiters, especially like recruiters with tech background, they do look at your activity and whether you have like some recent projects on GitHub. Maybe also like a portfolio website, but I definitely think your GitHub is more important than having a dedicated portfolio website. And also, being somewhat active on LinkedIn, because for me, LinkedIn was the most used platform for finding jobs. So posting there every now and then about like some interesting things you might have learned or read about, or about your own projects, was definitely a good way to show that even though like the program that I took ended, I'm still like learning, I'm still trying to improve. And part of that is also like looking for a job, but in the meantime, I'm also studying and trying to broaden my knowledge. So I think having like 2 or 3 good projects to show is a good start. Like you don't have to have like 1,000 projects, because some people, they use that a bit as like an excuse not to start job hunting. They were like, oh, I need like 10 projects, like really good projects to show before I even like apply. But I would say if you have like 2 or 3 good projects, just start sending out your applications, and you can still build more in the meantime. But if you have projects that show a solid knowledge of the technologies that are like wanted in your field, then that is enough to get started.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You shared a really 2 important point, like using LinkedIn efficiently. Another one is like having a good projects. Like when you say good projects, what does it mean? Like, are you looking at more like, hey, the hottest technology is React. I want to work on projects with React, Node.js. So it shows my skill set. I know those basic technologies, like obvious expected technology or framework or library. What do you mean by a good project to showcase?
I would underline what you said. So using a modern JavaScript framework like React or Vue, and maybe also some CSS library, or anything that you see frequently in job ads, for example, what's oftentimes asked for. So for example, I made like a list of the skills that I saw often in ads, and just highlighted what I know and what I should be knowing, and try to display those skills and also try to catch up on the ones that I was lacking.
Mm-hmm. Was it more like hey, I look for 10 openings on front end, like, hey, these are the technologies are repeating, this is the most expected things, like, hey, do I have this skill, how comfortable I am with that, hey, this is something which I'm not familiar with, just repeating again and again, something I need to focus on there. Like, was there some process or some, like, how did you approach that, like, hey, this is something I lack and I should focus on that?
I would take like 10, 20 job ads in the beginning and try to like find similarities between them and create like an ideal profile and see like how far I match that. Of course, like as like somebody who's fairly new to this career, like I couldn't fulfill like 100% of even a junior position, but you would be quite surprised that you can still check off quite a lot. And it's not a shame to like not know a specific technology that maybe is even like very popular and mainstream right now, but it's good to like know about it and show that you're informed, and you would be able to maybe catch up soon on something new.
Have you ever felt like that, like, hey, a lot of things I should focus on? No, I just focus on the core things. Like, how did you manage like increasing the scope rather than like just focusing like, hey, I want to focus on these things. This is where most important things.
I think having a like stable foundation in some technologies is important, because you don't need to know every like JavaScript framework that is out there, but if you know one really well, it will be easier for you to adapt to others. Like if you know like React, it will be easier for you to learn Vue and pick up other frameworks. So don't feel overwhelmed about about the amount of like new technologies coming up every day, but try to understand like a few quite well and then start to branch out, but have a stable foundation first, I would say.
Yeah, that's well said. For the job hunting, did you use any other platform other than LinkedIn? Can you elaborate, like, what was your strategy? How well you're using LinkedIn? There could be many ways. Like you said, you can post your learnings and gain traction, like you're working on front-end topics. Are you actively looking for a job and you applying and reaching out to HR? Like, what is the one thing which really worked well and you encourage the students to be like using that platform in an efficient way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a LinkedIn expert, but yeah, just engaging regularly, keep on applying also, because you need to have kind of like a state of like a flow state, where you always have like some open applications and some where you wait for feedback, but some where you're also like interviewing, and try to avoid having like a gap where you don't have anything. So just keep on regularly applying. And also networking, I think, is one point that is often neglected by like newbies in the like tech industry. Of course, nowadays with COVID, there aren't many in-person meetups or events, but there's still like a lot going on online that you can find, yeah, advertised on LinkedIn, or some like conferences online where you can meet people. So one, actually, they had like a career, like an online career fair, which was really cool. And yeah, so just caught up with like some people I knew previously who also know, who are in tech, and ask if they're either open for just like a coffee chat to tell me about the experience and give me some like tips to yeah, look for a job, or if they knew any like open positions. So yeah, it sometimes feels like you're maybe like getting on the other person's nerves, but I would say don't be shy. Like asking doesn't cost you anything, and applying for jobs takes a bit of a thick skin probably, and there will be many rejections. So yeah, don't take it personally if somebody isn't up for like spending time with you, I would say.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And you would be surprised to like see how many people actually agree, like strangers agree to talk with you for like 15 minutes if you have some interesting questions coming up. Like
Yeah.
I met some really great people just by like messaging them on LinkedIn and asking some questions, for example, how they came to the position they are at now, if they have any like tips for somebody who's new in the industry. And yeah, I'm still in touch with some of them actually.
That's how I also reached out to you, Michelle. Like I'm talking to people and I want to help people who are looking to enter into the front end tech and UX. So I reached out to people. Of course, not everybody's going to respond, because there might be projects like they're stressed and busy. You have to totally understand them. Like not everybody can, and it takes time, but I think it's definitely has a value. Like if you can bring some value to them, and definitely I think, yeah, that's totally makes sense. The networking is really powerful tool. Any final tips and thoughts you would like to share with the bootcamp students wanted to enter into front end and mainly looking for a experience? Should they look for an internship, or they should look for a junior front end role?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. And one of the most valuable like tips I got from my lead teacher at the bootcamp was to ignore the years of experience in job descriptions. So if you check most of the requirements, just give it a go, apply anyways. It doesn't have to say junior developer or internship. Of course, maybe if it's like a senior developer position with 10 years of experience, then don't send your application. But if you match somewhat the skill set, then send it out, apply. You never know what will happen. Like a few times, actually, companies told me I'm not matching the description, but they would be open for a traineeship or an internship. And yeah, that they really like my profile and would take me on like in a different way than it was advertised. And that was quite pleasant. Of course, it also takes good preparation, I would say. And yeah, if you have a solid GitHub, LinkedIn, a nice CV, I think your opportunities definitely widen there. If you show that you're taking it seriously.
So you never know, like you can have a tailored kind of a position for you based on your experience, and there might be some negotiation, and like it's possible to kind of alter the expectations based on your experience.
Definitely. And I think for internships and junior positions, it's especially important to have a good cultural fit for the company. Because you're not bringing much of a like technical value to them. You don't have the skills. It's just like a fact. So they need to invest in you to grow you within the company. But for that, there needs to be a good foundation of communication, that like you fit into the team well and into the company culture. So I think that also shouldn't be underestimated. And you also, even if you're looking for your first job as in front-end developer or back-end, whatever, like you don't have to take the first best opportunity. Like if you feel like you're not comfortable and the company is not providing what you need, for example, like good mentorship and like a stable environment, then better like wait for the next opportunity, because I feel like some people are quite, I wouldn't say desperate, but they really just want to get started, but also like look at yourself and find out what your own values are and if that is matching with the company you're applying to, because ideally you want to stay there for a bit and grow there. So yeah. That's
a very good tip. Like don't be just jump there, like see if it's a right fit and make a thoughtful decision if it's a right place for you. Yeah. Any final thoughts like you want to share, kind of advice or tips for students who are coming from bootcamp projects, like looking for a front-end role, like any suggestions and thoughts you would like to share?
I think the two major points I want to stress is, first, to keep coding, and second, to build a community and a network to surround yourself with people that you look up to or that support you, because starting out in a fresh environment can be quite isolating and it can be frustrating and lonely. So find people that support you on this journey, and probably also find new friends in that field in the same goal.
Wow, that's great.